Okay, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. You
So,
slid into my DMs fast.
yeah, I saw you on Threads and I was like, I need the lore on the podcast. We need the queso lore.
When you said lore, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've made it. There's lore." There's actually like a conspiracy theory, a joke, of course, around the whole thing. So that was funny too. There's been a lot of haha moments.
I loved it. I was like, I need to know what's going on. And then I clicked over to your Instagram because I'm a nosy little stalker. And I was like, wait a minute, backup account. What's going on here? So I wanted to before we get into everything, tell the people a little bit about like you. How did you get into what you're doing? Like, what was the journey?
Oh man. Okay, that's a loaded one. Yeah, okay. So for a while I've been doing humor sales copywriting. I actually am just now in kind of that working in public of expanding that into
Mhm.
like humor and marketing, just because I already do a lot of that on the back end anyway. I'm like, you know what, shoot, like let's just go full send and jump right in.
Mhm.
But what brought me here, damn, I've been in the marketing space for about, I guess, 8 years because my oldest is about to turn 8, and that's kind of when I started.
Oh,
Um, and I've done everything under the sun, very like Jill of all trades until I
yeah.
really found what I was just really, really good at. And the common denominator for me was like communicating, right? It's like I'm just an excellent communicator. And so that's always made me really good at selling, marketing, all of that. Um, but then when I started creating content for my own brand, I really started leaning into just my own humor, the thing, just being entertaining, seeing value as more than just here's how to do this or here's how to do that, very traditional like how to content,
Right.
and really shifting into more entertainment almost. And just, I mean, my reach, my community, my just everything grew tremendously, and I was like, man, this shit works. um and I've always said in a past life or in another life I would be either a comedian or an attorney because it's like laughing and fighting, like I love it. And so I started really leaning into the comedic side of things and learning from comedians and figuring out how that translates into marketing, into content, into selling. And yeah, that's how I got here.
That's so cool. I love that you come down on the because I was stalking the content that is up on your backup account, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was like, it's so I like the even just your bio where it's like we like
Oh, the
what is like
clear over clever.
clear
Yeah,
over
that's it.
clever.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that marketing advice. It's just like clear over clever, clear over everything is clear over clever. It's like, why can't we be both? I mean, you have to have
Mhm.
clarity, you have to have clear, absolutely. But it's like, why not? And we can live in the world of and.
100%. Well, and everybody's copywriting, for lack of a better word, and marketing
Ugh,
and everything is just so bland and it feels really copy paste. And I think a lot of
yeah,
people feel that right now, where like you scroll through social media and it could all have been posted by the same person.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And words start to lose their meaning. And we kind of see that cycle through with different words. And then it's like so much like I have a lot of clients where it's like, I've been saying this for years and it's had so much impact. And now it's kind of just like, wah, wah, wah.
It's
And that's
become a
just what
buzzword.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you tell those clients when it's like you need to shift the way you're talking about it?
Oh, that's yeah. So usually what happens is it's a like a single word. So like strategy, that's one, oh my gosh, we've been working
Yeah.
on a lot, is strategy. So it's like, well, how can we talk about strategy? So it's always like, what is strategy? Why does it matter? What does it visually look like? So a lot of it is not so much like, let's find a synonym. It's not about like, let's find another word to replace it, and
Mhm.
more, let's talk about this in a different way.
Mm. I love that. I love that. That's really good advice. So I fill us in. It looks like you've basically sold out your launch with your Instagram taken down.
That was interesting.
What has that been like?
It was it was wild because my account was taken down when I had posted. So I had posted on my old account,
Mhm.
just past the Queso Co. I posted a carousel. You know how it is. It's like
Okay.
enrollment, it's like the carousel, right? And it's got like the different slides, who's it for, what's included, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And I had just had this mini brand done for stand up copy, which is my group program. And I was like, I cannot wait to put this out to the world. Posted the
Mhm.
carousel, and like a few minutes later, I like, you know how it is, you post something and you're like, oh my God, I gotta look at it because it's just so cute and I'm amazing. So I'm
Yes.
like, I gotta live with my own content. Open Instagram, and it's like, your account has been suspended. I was like,
Oh,
oh my God, day one of my launch. Are you kidding me? This is July 1st too. And I was like, this sucks.
oof.
And so I was like, well, I've got an email list, but like that's pretty much it besides like threads, but that's not even diversification from a marketing standpoint because it's owned by Meta too. So
Right.
everything's down except my email list. And so, oh well. And really selling the launch was really successful because of the community I'd built. Like I had friends that were sending me screenshots and like videos of like the free queso hashtag on threads. And it's like my past students, they carried that launch for me. They
Oh,
shared every single day multiple times like the link to that, sharing their experience, sharing why people should join, all of that. So between that and my emails, it's like it's probably the laziest launch I've ever had. I mean, it was stress inducing for other reasons, but
for sure.
yeah, it was incredible. I hadn't realized what I had built for and around my brand until then. Like not really, you know.
Mhm. Right. How big was that account that got taken down?
It was not huge. I was about to hit 1,000 followers. Like it was not a large account, but it's like, I mean, I had sold out plenty of launches with even under like I think I had 89 followers the first launch that I'd like fully sold out on. And I know that I think I saw a thread of yours where you're like follow count does not equal sales. Like I
Yeah.
think that you posted that like I think yesterday or something, but it's like it's just so true, but I never realized how powerful, like granted like 900ish people, that's a shit ton of people, but when you look at a follow account, like a follow for an account, you don't really think that's a whole lot. But
Right.
it's enough people where if you've poured in, you've like really loved on them and cared for them, and you've really created a whole community around your brand, like it's enough to sell at a launch.
100%. So, talk to me about the community building aspect. What are kind of the core things that you focus on with your socials that you would say like this is why the community is what it is?
Yeah. If I'm being completely honest, I never was like, okay, so here's the pass the queso and here's my community building strategy. Um, it was never like that. It was genuinely like, I'm here, of course, we've all got shit to sell, but like while we're here, I want to have a good time.
Mhm.
And I think one huge privilege of having a small account is the ability to respond to every comment, DM everybody, like you almost follow the people who follow you even. So there's
Mhm.
just this constant dialogue. um I get told all the time it feels like you're everywhere because it's like I like to yap. So it's like you see me on Instagram, you see me on threads, it's like I'm heavily engaging, and I think that that's something that and not just for the sake of engagement. It's not like setting my 5-minute timer, I'm going to go comment on 10 posts, right?
Right.
It's a genuine investment in the people who have genuinely invested in you, and I don't think that that's something that you can strategize. Like you've got that in your, in your heart for lack of better words, or you don't.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it comes from a place of just genuinely caring about what you do and your people, which
Yeah.
is something that unfortunately a lot of people in the space lack. And
Yeah,
so
agreed.
it's really refreshing to hear you talk about that. Um and you also mentioned that your past students were really just like carrying your banner.
Yeah, it's
Talk a
crazy.
little bit about like the client experience, the community building
Mhm.
inside the offer, and then like
Yeah.
just kind of creating those raving fans.
Yeah, so stand up copy is specifically, it's a pretty small group program. I can only take a dozen folks in it, so it's not like this huge thing. But so it's a humor sales copywriting course. It's like you take your offer through it, and we're creating messaging, your sales, but like we're writing all the things together.
Hmm.
Um, and so there's just a lot of, it's a small group, so it's just by default everyone's in everyone's business. And also what I love about it is like it's not the Emily show, right? It's not
Hmm.
like I'm your fearless leader. It's very it has a community vibe in and of itself. And then also, I think that the way that you sell and bring people into your offers really sets a tone for what happens inside your offer too. I know it's kind of like full circle moment here, but
Mhm.
um, yeah. And then as far as like the group program, it's very much created to actually deliver upon a very specific promise, a very specific result. Um, and it does that and it works. And so it's like I've invested in these people, I've cared for them, I've not, bullied or been ugly to people to get them into the sale or shame them into that.
Right.
I've just like empathize with what they need and they want and where they are. And then when they're ready. And then we do the thing. I mean, it's just, I think it's so funny. We complicate business and brand building and community so much. It's like, just show up as yourself. Don't be a shit person
Mhm.
and like deliver upon what you can. And I mean, I think it's as simple as that.
I completely agree. It is so overcomplicated.
Yeah.
Would you say that your like philosophy around really infusing humor into your marketing, your copywriting, does that kind of set the tone and like almost like disarm people so it's not like you're trying to sell them, it's just more community focused?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely am a like I'm a big proponent of launching. I love
Mhm.
selling. I have no discomfort around there, but it's also because of how I sell. But I
Mhm.
definitely would say like one thing I teach my students is there's a difference between levity, humor, and comedy. And like levity is just like this acceptance, this vibe of like I'm gonna create a space where people can be silly, can be themselves, whatever. They can make a joke. You set someone up with an opportunity to be funny, like accepting that's levity. And its humor is like more intentional, right?
Mhm.
It's like you when you want your content to be a little more funny or you plan your funny. And then comedy is just like that's kind of like if humor goes pro is what I say. It's kind of like those are like the comedians. Like we like everyone is funny just because you're not on the stage. Like no one has to be that kind of funny. So like that's not even something that I teach. Like I'm not here like I'm going to teach you to be a comedian. It's not about that. It's just about bringing in that acceptance and humor into the everything. And so for sure, like one thing I teach is that humor, like it, I say it charms and disarms your way to that
Yep.
authority and profit. And so for sure, it definitely creates a space where like people feel more comfortable being themselves, having these conversations with you. And it really just positions everyone to get out what they need in order to make an educated buying decision. So
Mhm.
absolutely, I would agree.
That's awesome. I really like that.
Yeah.
And I would assume a lot of that same tone is carried over into your email list.
Yeah.
With the emails, I assume you had emails planned for the launch. Did you
Mhm.
switch anything up when this happened, or did you just kind of let it go?
Oh, that's I a little bit of both. So I was like, oh crap. So immediately like I put together an email, right? And I'm just sort of like, hey, this is what's happening, but like the show will go on kind of thing. And then really that day I started getting like I mentioned before, like the screenshots and the videos and like, whoa, like this hashtag free queso, which I honestly thought at first, like, because my friend started it and I thought that they would post and maybe a couple other people and just be kind of like a haha. We'd like look back on it one day, but then it like just really started growing, which was wild. Um and yeah, so then my second email was just like totally off the cuff because I was just like, listen, I was like then I just started talking about community. Then I started talking about like messaging because within stand up copy, it's like we're teaching, it's like your messaging, writing copy from it, and then infusing it with humor. So it's sort of this layered deal. And it's sort of like you can't build community on just clarity.
Mhm.
Like you don't create relationships and form bonds with people just because you're clear about something. And so I really just started to connect. It's like this shit matters. And here's why. Like I'm literally living this out. I'm literally starting all over. And like look what this is doing. And then really speaking to how being a good communicator, knowing we have to say all of that, it's a platformless skill. You can if I threw you on a brand new account, could you not, of course, like recreate, but like, would you be okay? Like, yeah, you'd need some time, but like, could you do what you were doing before? Like, could you build up a community again? Could you get those people to like refollow you? Could you, when you show up, are people going to be just hella excited that you're back? None of that's possible if you just stick with the clear part of
Right.
things.
I
Yeah.
I love that. I can relate to what you're going through. I had my TikTok account go down several times. And
Uh,
I was terrified because at
yeah.
that point, we were so brand new to business that that was the only source of leads. I didn't have an email list yet. I didn't
Mm,
really, I had an Instagram, but it wasn't the same audience as what was on my TikTok.
yeah,
And so I was just absolutely terrified.
it is.
And
It's scary.
yeah, it's like paralyzing. It's like I don't know what I'm gonna do. And that was exactly what my husband told me. He was like, "Well, you're still here. Like you can say the same stuff, just like make a new account. It's not that deep."
It's not. He's like, suck it up. Rub some
I
dirt in
know.
it. Just make
Literally.
a damn account. I love it.
He's
And
like,
you kind
"What's
of
the
like,
problem?"
oh, it is possible. But like I do recognize though, because like I do recognize though that you sort of do more in what you created though. Not that we like go back and like binge all of our own content all the time, but it's sort of like you've put in the time, the effort in between like little things. Like for instance, I had a custom filter made for
Mhm.
stand-up copy with like these microphones and stuff. And it's like now I have to like go and like like set all of that up, right? Or it's like, what about all the filters that you used all the time, or like your highlights, or your like the little things. It's sort of like it is part of our day to day. Like it's not just like a little social media account. They're things that we
Mhm.
have to recreate, rebuild, and figure out all over again. So there's
Mhm.
just like a lot of like there's a lot of mental load to it. And so
Right.
I do get the like regardless of me being like I'm saying the same shit, like I could just show up and do the same thing again, like it's fine. There are
Yeah.
still those little things. I'm like, "Ugh," or my close friends, like I built um a really a good chunky list over there. That was a big part of my marketing strategy.
Mhm.
So oh well, but I'm rebuilding it again, and it's like we're almost 100 people, so it's like it's a start. But I will say I did take like a week off though, because
Mm.
at first I was really hopeful. Like I was like, I'll get my account back. Like, those images were flagged, but like I submitted proof that I owned those designs, like all this sort of stuff. Like, surely I'll get it back. I don't know why I was thinking that. It's just like hopeful. I was like, glass half full, right? So I really did like I did hold off for a week. So I was like offline for a whole week. So there was a lot of like thinking showers and woe is me. I'm so lonely. But then I hop back on the horse and it was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, absolutely. You can totally like if it's ripped away, can you just like show up as you are and rebuild like you did with your TikTok?
Right. Well, and it comes from like such an innate like knowing of like who you are, what you do, what you're known for. And
Yeah.
if you if your entire sense of identity is tied to your follower account and that one account that you've built, you have deeper issues in your
Yeah, that's
business.
not a brand. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's your your reputation. I think that's a really good point for sure. But yeah, because like I had an email list and then had followers, but like over there, but that's it. And
Mhm.
it was so funny because I literally had planned for like Q4. I was like, you know what? We're gonna hop on the LinkedIn train. I think it's gonna be really easy for me to create contrast over there.
Mhm.
And then I was like, and like we really got to pick up Pinterest. Like there were some other things. It's like I've been blogging, but we haven't really been doing much with that. So I was like, it's time for us to do that. And then like right before we had even gotten to it, it's like boom, Meta kicked me out. Damn it. But like it's a good lesson in that too. We're really taught to pick one platform. Everyone's like, pick one platform and do well, double down.
Mm.
And um it's like, okay. But like what
Y-
happens when you lose that platform?
Right. Well, and I've I've said that before too. It's like I don't feel like that's good advice because can you get more short-term growth if you focus on just one platform? Yeah, in some cases, but are you wanting to build a social media account or are you wanting to build a business?
Yeah, yeah, because there's a difference.
Mhm. And it's like to me, the people that are like, "Well, I don't want to have to be everywhere all the time." In my head, it's like, do you want to have a business or not? Because you also it's not like you're just creating content for every single one of those platforms.
Yeah,
If you have your brand dialed in and you know what you're talking about, you know what your message is, it's pretty easy to kind of just restructure
yeah,
your message for the different platforms.
yeah, for sure. Just like a little bit of a positioning difference for sure. Like my approach to LinkedIn is going to be different than like Threads. So absolutely.
I would also love to see you just like show up as you do on Threads on LinkedIn.
Well, the plan is actually, I was like, the plan is actually to basically do that, but just like but of course, like with LinkedIn, it's like you got to be a little more intentional with the hook,
Right.
So it's like, okay, I've got to like have a little bit of a hook. I'm gonna be trying the whole image thing, but besides that, it's the same person. I know a lot of brands do have different tones for different platforms, but it's like I don't. I'm incapable.
You're like, I just am who I am.
Sorry, y'all. Sorry about that.
I
It's
love
easier.
that. So I'm so interested in this idea, and I know that a lot of people are too. The fact that so many people just really carried your banner and they're like, we're gonna sell out this program for you, basically.
Yeah, that was so sweet.
that's that's so awesome. Do you have a like our audience is always like, give us the tangibles, give us the specific, like how do you go about like mapping out a client experience that is just so like dazzling to people that they're like, wow, this is something I'm gonna like shout from the rooftops?
Hmm. That's a really good question because I definitely am not like a. I don't think a whole lot about client experience, if I'm being completely honest. What I
Okay.
think about more so is cohesion between what I say and what I deliver. So there's a lot about messaging, obviously, that I talk about all the time. And the fact is like your messaging should be tangible and measurable and all of that. And you should have a promise. You should have something that you're like, we're gonna do XYZ. And then actually deliver upon it. So there's just a cohesion between and this trust. So people we engaged and they typically like the humor, the personality. It's like they like you. What you
Mm-hmm.
say sticks with them. Then your messaging is super, super clear. So they know exactly what you're about and what they're going to get out of it. And they trust you because you're being very specific. It's not vague, not like, come into this space and be around my energy. We're going to level up. We're going to manifest. Like, what the hell does that mean? They like, it's very specific. And honestly, being specific is honest and it allows people to hold you accountable too.
Mm-hmm.
So people then I felt like I've shown up and it's like been really clear. Our personalities mesh or they don't. So there's either so usually it's a you like me, you know what I'm going to offer you, and when you're ready to join, to buy whatever you will, and what you get is going to equal what I've been telling you this whole time. And so there's just this integrity that is like you don't find everywhere, unfortunately.
Right.
So I think it's just that cohesion between like what you say and what people actually get. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, like, I mean, good for me, I guess,
The
because it
pros.
creates contrast and that my offer, my client experience or whatever stands out. But then people leave and they're like, holy shit, she delivered upon what she says. And so
Mm-hmm.
I want this for other people and I want to share it. And usually it's like, oh, that was life changing. And like I know that sounds so dramatic, but I get that a lot. So it's more so about that. And but you can't there are a lot of people I've worked with, for instance, where it's like I do have an amazing experience with them. I do get something out of it. But it took me a while to make that decision to work with them
Mm-hmm.
because their messaging and what they were saying wasn't very clear,
Right.
or wasn't specific. They didn't even really know what they were necessarily talking about. They just knew they were good at something and they could help me be good at it.
Right.
Um, but you've got to have both. That's where like I keep saying and it's like you've got to have both.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that that's a big proponent as to why I believe at least why people were like I'm going to carry this for you because I care about you. You are good for your word. You helped me. Like
Mm-hmm.
why would anyone not want to support someone like that?
Yeah, I love the simplicity in that. And something that really stands out to me as you're talking is the total lack of desperation, like in the way that you're explaining. Because so many people, they're
Oh,
like, what am I going to do to get the sale, to convince people to work with me? And you're
yeah.
just like, you will when you're ready. Here's what I do, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, yeah, and like and definitely understand the I need to make a sale, right? Like I get that, but I think that there are, yes, there are cases where people are like, oh my god, I started my business and like I made multi six figures my first month, and it's like there is that, sure, but it's just like that's not the reality for a lot of people. And I've also learned the hard way that like working more, putting in more, pushing more, it doesn't always equal more output, unfortunately.
Yes.
So I know we're talking about this and we're saying like it's simple, right? But it is simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy to figure out how to be a good communicator and then to like hold the line and like do like carry that through.
Right.
It's not easy, but it's simple. And so yeah, it's just it can be rough.
Yeah, it's really hard to get to that place of simplicity where it's like I
Yeah.
have this clarity around who I am, what I stand for, and I really also like what you said about the integrity piece where it's like you say something and then you follow through on it.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, I'm sure you would probably agree with this. It seems to me that a lot of people try to kind of replicate other people's like message or promise because they
Yeah.
think that that is what people want when they can't necessarily
Mhm.
produce that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is like like you don't know what you don't know, and so there's
Mhm.
like there's a season of like self-discovery as well. And that's why like I mean, of course, like, right, I'm over here and it's like I sell messaging oriented services. So of course, you're gonna expect me to be like messaging, but but like it's just like even for me, like that's one of the first things I've ever invested in. I still to this day, it's like I do these things really well, but I still hire other people to come in because it's like I know how important this is to get it right. So I'm gonna have someone come in and this iron sharpens iron thing. And so like being a good communicator is the foundation of all of it. And so sometimes you don't really know what you're trying to say. There are so many
Mhm.
people where they fizzle out, but I see them and I'm like, I can feel like what you're trying to say, but you're
Mhm.
not saying it. And I
Right.
know it's not because you're lazy. It's not because you can't. It's not because like you weren't meant for this. It's because like you don't know what you don't know and you need someone to help you through that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times it's like we've got to give grace too to some people who are just they're just freaking trying.
Mhm.
Um and then also to have the resources to have someone come in and help you is a privilege in and of itself. So it's just like it's a it's a nuancy area for sure.
It
But
is.
yeah, but you've got to figure out what you're saying.
Mhm. It is such a push and pull because it's interesting because I guess I see a lot of content on like the dark side of the online space
The
where
dark.
in the dark web where it's like the MRR trainings where they're
Oh
like
God.
yeah, they're like, well, just say you made that money and then people will buy it from you. It's like, well,
It's so sad. Like part of me is always like, you don't know what you don't know, and and they are like victims of
mhm,
like, but at the same time it's like you're grown. There's got to be that accountability, but like I think that sometimes we think of accountability as like I'm a very black and white person. I like things to be like this or
right,
way over here. But like
right,
that is a piece where it's like I saw a thread the other day where they were talking about someone was like, "Oh, I got a referral from so and so for this person, but like they're just doing a shit job. I don't want to like blast them, but like do I say something about how they keep referring this person to people and they're just garbage?" And like there was this conversation around that. I was like, well, we've like there's got to be accountability. Accountability doesn't mean putting people on blast or being like, you're an idiot for this MMR stuff. But at the same, is it MMR? MRR?
MRR, yeah, yeah,
MRR stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
Which sucks because it's like the monthly but it's like but it's like there's got to be an accountability, but I think people naturally hold other people accountable by not purchasing with them. I
hmm
think it naturally like the natural selection thing happens and over time.
agreed, agreed. Well, and it seems to me that, and maybe I'm making more out of it than it is, but it seems to me that the lack of clarity that people have around themselves and their messaging
Mm,
actually leads to that lack of integrity because at that point a lot of times they're just grasping at straws, whereas they
yeah,
wouldn't have gone down that road if they didn't feel so desperate, if they
yeah,
understood like what they were supposed to say.
yeah, absolutely. It can also lead you to like working with people, like actually hiring people too who are not a great fit as well. Because it's like,
Right.
how am I supposed to hire someone to help me achieve my goals or get closer to this, that, or the other if I don't even know what that is?
Right.
So. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why that's like the messaging is just like, I really do believe super foundational. So even when I work with people who it's like, they've got strong ass brands and you look at them and you're like, damn, they know what they're saying and they're leading these conversations. It's like, I still like, I don't go, oh, you're popular, so we're not going to talk about messaging. It's like, I don't care who the fuck you are. We're going to talk about messaging because it's important and it's foundational. Um, and I like you said, I think the integrity builds upon and stems from that for sure. I love that thought.
Yeah, it's like if you know who you are and what you're about, then there's almost not a room for that lack of integrity to like weasel its way
Hmm.
in. You're like, no, I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you have something
So
to measure it against.
yeah, a
Yeah,
hundred
then
percent.
that's the accountability to yourself.
Yeah,
Full
yeah.
circle.
It does. It always comes back to accountability in one way or another. It really does. And it's also like caring enough about yourself and your brand to like get it figured out because again,
Hmm.
a lot of people they'll just go out and like I understand like messy action, like you need to just do
Oh,
something,
for sure.
but doing something is not the same as just like trying to replicate what you see other people doing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I absolutely agree. Yeah, there are so many like POVs and stuff. I'm like, girl, that's not a POV. Or wow, that sounds exactly like so and so.
Like
I
wow,
think,
I
I think.
actually copy
Oh, go
pasted
ahead.
that.
Yep, I agree. But it's like I think some of the best advice I still also want to give, I can't remember from who, or I totally credit them. Sorry. Is the advice of like following people outside of your industry, you know?
Mhm.
Then it's more so like you're inspired rather than like kind of taking in stuff that you might end up regurgitating.
Yeah.
So it's like, for instance, I think I follow, like, of course, like I've expanded outside of copywriting, but like for a while it's been just copywriting. So it's like, I
Mhm.
think I follow two copywriters and they're because they're my friends. Like, I don't consume content from other copywriters, not because like, on threads I will, because it's, a little more crazy over there. But
Right.
like, I don't read their emails. I don't look at their posts because it's like, I've got to keep my eyes on me.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. I'm the same way. I think there's like maybe two or three people in the space that do similar things to what I do, and I
Yeah.
follow them because I know them personally. I
Yeah.
don't follow anybody else. I don't watch their content because ultimately, like I don't care because like I know what I'm wanting to say, so like I don't need to see
Yeah.
what they're saying.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, and I know that some people would be like, "Well, then you're not being open-minded or what about rising tide lifts all boats?" But like on one hand, it's like sometimes I'm tired of that. It's like, okay, listen, I know that there's like enough space for everyone, I absolutely agree. But at the same
Mhm.
time, like some people get rubbed the wrong way whenever on onboarding, like I'm asking them like who's your, competitor? Because it's like you do have competitors. I'm sorry, but you do. It's there's nothing wrong with that. It's
Mhm.
good for you. It's good for them. It's a very like iron sharpens iron thing. It's positive, um, but yeah, but I agree. Like, because this is just natural to my personality. But I'm like, I kind of like don't care what you have to say because like what I have to say is kind of better. And if someone was gonna be wrong here, it's definitely you. But the thing is, like, if you don't feel that way about what you're saying and what you believe and what you're delivering upon, I'm sorry, but like, I don't know, like, it's kind of like when people are like, I believe this. It's like, if you actually believe that, like, state that directly. Like, that's a fact to you. Like,
Mhm.
there's no like, I don't know who needs to hear this. I think, I believe, like there's like forget the nuance. Like if that's actually what you believe, like embody that, lead bold with it, say it, and like fuck everyone else. Like,
Mhm.
step into that. So
100%. Well, and people
yeah,
are just terrified to get the backlash, so
that as
they
well. I
don't.
love backlash.
Same.
It's
I'm
fun.
like, it fuels my fire. I'm like, oh yeah, give me a hate comment.
I know sometimes I'm scrolling and I'm like, what can I say today to start a fight?
How can I stir the pot a little bit?
Yeah. Though like sometimes it's like, okay, sometimes you do enter space and you're like, there is a difference between like being a bully because it's like that's unacceptable. But like sometimes just like a little poke and a prod, like it's good for you.
Yep, I totally agree.
I'm starting to sound like a boomer where it's like, oh no, getting picked on's good for you. It makes you strong.
But that's not
It's not
true.
not true. I don't know. Listen, I was bullied. I'm gonna tell you, I could take some heat.
Yeah. Well, and it's like it also to me, I'm like, if you're so afraid of people coming against you, maybe you're not as strong in your beliefs as you think you are. If you can't back
Yeah,
those up.
yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I do think that there's like on a spectrum of like personalities, of course, right? Because there are some people who are just like more tender in nature and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, for sure. And like I like have a lot of those that are really close to me. Like I love them. But yeah, I don't think though it has to be like full on, attack or like super intense. I
Right.
think there's like a spectrum, but for sure, like you should be able to at least be like, that hurt my feelings.
Mhm.
But oh well, because this is what I believe.
Right.
So for sure, for sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
totally agree. You mentioned one other thing that I want you to kind of go off about. You said people that have like a really powerful brand and they're really leading conversations.
Yeah.
What are maybe some key indicators? Like what do you see as like people that are really being a leader in those conversations? And then what
Hmm.
are things that people could maybe take and be like, if I wanted to be that, how do I check some boxes to like move down that path?
Okay, you're saying like kind of like an indicator that someone is that kind of person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that like I'm not trying to be like who's the most popular, but the thing is, like when people have results, when people work with you and they're like people will share. So
Mhm.
like I know you like some people might not like it, but when you see certain people getting tagged on the regular, like, hey, who do I need to talk to about this? And that person is continuously being recommended. There is a reason for that. And that
Mhm.
person did not like manipulate each of these commenters to be like, tag me or else, like obviously there's a reason. So
Mhm.
like when you're making people's conversations, like my aunt has this saying where she's just like in her smoker voice, she's like, good or bad, just talk about me. And it's like probably not the bad, but like when people talk about you, like that's a good thing, and so pay attention to that. But if you want that, so like I think that someone who gets tagged and like recommended a lot, like that is someone that is obviously getting results for people and helping people, and so that's obviously an indicator. But also it's like, I mean, I've had under 1,000 followers, like, and
Mhm.
like I found myself, I get tagged all the freaking time, so it's nothing to do with follow count. So like that consistency and like what they're saying as well. Like you just see that they're saying the same thing, not in like a verbatim, but just like they say it, they walk it, they talk it, they live it out. They've done it for themselves, not just for like
Mhm.
other people. That's a really big one. Um, for sure. Another thing, I mean, honestly, like it really just, I feel comes down to they're saying it, they're fulfilling it for themselves, for other people, and everyone's like eating it up. I think it's as simple as that. So like if you're wanting to like, okay, I want to be that, like you've got to figure out, I think first step is like figure out what you're saying. And like if you're like, I don't know how to do that and you're like stuck at step one, start saying shit. I literally like I am building a mastermind on the back end, and on
Mhm.
threads the other day I was like, I really got I'm working through my own messaging for it. And there was one thing I was like I wanted to work through. And so like I posted like three different things just like on threads, right? Because threads is
Mhm.
like stories where it's like you post it, I don't know, it's kind of like you post it and it's kind of like no one ever sees it again. Sometimes weird things do circle back, but
Right.
put it up there, see what the response is, like see how did it feel in your gut? Like was it like ooh, I'm scared but I'm excited, or was that ooh, that was gross, or like what are the conversations? Are people saying like, "Oh my god, say more?" Um
Mhm.
that sort of stuff. Like just try stuff on and then figure out what you're saying, and once you feel really like strong about that, and it will evolve, but like then start saying it all the time everywhere.
Mhm.
So yeah, figure out what you're going to say it all the time, and then apply and embody it yourself, and then help people do the same thing. I think it's as clear as the whole figure out what you're saying and deliver upon it consistently. It's back to like the integrity thing we talked about a bit before. So
Mhm.
I think that I genuinely think like the people who are the most clear and interesting and have the most integrity, they're the people who are gonna like be the most prominent voices.
100%. I
Yeah, for the
completely
long
agree.
term.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And it's interesting because people seem to have this like adversity to being repetitive They're like, "Oh, I don't want
Yep.
to be too redundant. I don't want to like say that again." And it's like it's not it's required. It's
Yeah.
not like,
You
"Oh,
have to
I
get
don't want to
comfortable with
do
that.
that." Yeah, you have to do that if you want people to remember you.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I think one thing that helps though is like I just posted a reel about this with like back to the humor element too. It's like when you that's what you say is like your messaging, right? And then like how you say it is in your brand voice, and humor is just like part of that. But the
Mhm.
delivery matters too. And the thing is, you don't have to say things verbatim again and again and again. You can like
Right.
package them up in different ways. You can, show not tell. There's so many things you can do with it. So like if your excuse is I'm bored of saying the same thing, only boring people get bored. Sorry, figure out a different way to package it up. So that's the way that I look at that. And then if it's like a insecurity thing, that's just the cost of doing business. Like you can't be insecure about what you're saying. Um
Mhm.
but yeah, but yeah, you can package it up in different ways. So I'm
Right.
all for being repetitive. I say the same shit all the time. And
That's
I'm a mom,
literally
so I'm used to it every day.
you're like, "I got to repeat myself or the shoes aren't getting put on."
Yeah, no kidding. It's like at this point, it's like we've no one has shoes because I'm just over it.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's so funny. I love it. No, I think that's such a good point and people need to hear it is like be repetitive. It's a positive thing and just package it in different ways. Again,
Yeah, I
it's
gotta
not
post
that
that on
serious.
Threads. Remind me.
Yes, post that on Threads. Yeah.
I'll tag you.
I love it. I love it. Um so my last question for you. If you were going to plan to launch again without Instagram, what would you do?
Like if I didn't have Instagram at all.
Yep.
Okay, so like what do I have? Like do I have my list? Do I have what do I have?
You can have Threads and you can have your email list and any new platforms that you expand onto.
I
No
feel like that's
Instagram.
cheating, but okay. Wait, you said no what?
No Instagram.
Just no Instagram. Yeah, Instagram is like where I thrive baby stories. Gosh, and reels. I know people will talk crap about the videos. I love them.
Me too.
No, I would just be like, okay, I'm launching is something brand new? You're like you're overthinking this.
I don't know. You're
Okay.
relaunching the same offer and I don't
Okay,
know.
okay, okay. So I would look back at my messaging and be like, okay, I just want to make sure this is locked in because like this is kind of the foundation. I'm pulling everything from here. So I would do that. Obviously pick my dates and the thing, the classic, when is this happening and that, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Obviously I'd plot out my emails, and then I probably would be like, okay, what platform am I going on? Threads. I'll just talk shit and link things all the time. And then like say LinkedIn, because I haven't really officially started over there. I would just start creating content based on my messaging. And then since it's newer to me, like I've got to figure out the kinks and stuff. But someone that I worked with for a while, her name is Kelsey. She owns Coming Up Roses. One thing that she talks about that I love is she's like, some people will be like, well, how do I sell this if I don't have the audience that wants to buy it? And she talks about launching is such a great way to get more of the right audience to be looking at you, like more of their eyeballs. So I
Mhm.
think that's an excellent piece of advice. And so it's like, well, that'd be easy. I'll just like, we'll launch on LinkedIn and continuously like talk about my offer. And I'm going to start getting more eyes. The only thing is, I think there are two extra steps in there because I'm starting on a new platform. One, it's like you got to figure out what the platform likes, right? Like, do they like you to use pictures or not, or this or that? So those kind of kinks you just play with. And then
Mhm.
two, I probably would like, I'm going to turn the dial up on the engagement a little more than everywhere else, just because it's like, I'm a new face
Mhm.
and I want people over there to be like, I keep seeing this bitch everywhere. Who the hell is she? Like,
Yep.
that's the goal. Like, I
Mhm.
want, like, my goal is always for people to be like, who's this? Always. So that's
Mhm.
what I do.
I love that. I love that. So when it's interesting to me because again, just the your tone and the way that you talk and kind of the way you explain things, you're not concerned about people buying. You're like, people will buy if your messaging is right. Like, you're not worried about
Yeah.
like, well, what if nobody sees this? What if I post and nobody ever sees it? What if
Yeah.
nobody joins? Like, that's not really even a concern for you.
Yeah, it's not, and I want to put context wise, I do want to say too, like it's not because I have a big email list that has an amazing conversion and I'm not worried about a launch going well because it's fine. I have 10K in recurring revenue anyway. I
Right.
don't have any of like I don't have that. I just want to like give that context. I feel like a lot of times people who are like um don't have a scarcity mindset and just this and just that. It's like easy for you to say
Right.
because you're obviously generating enough money that you've got a team, you're all over the internet, you have all these platforms, you have a huge list. Like it's easy for you to say, right? But
Yeah.
like I genuinely believe that. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm very privileged in the sense that like I have been able to sell my offers, but like I've gotten my reps in. That's the thing. Like, you have to get your reps in. No one owes you anything. Like, you're not obligated. No one's obligated to like buy your program just because you show up and you say some shit. Like, selling comes down to relevance and then timing too. You can't force someone to be ready. Like,
Mhm.
so the timing is there or not. Timing, you can't even plan around. It's either good for someone's timing or it's not. All you can do, the only thing you have control over is how relevant you are. That's it.
Mhm.
But that's something you can do. And so I do everything in my power to be the most relevant and not like in a pop culture like trendy way, but in like how relevant is what I have to say. And if it's
Mhm.
super relevant, then I have zero excuse but to like blast it, right? So
Yeah.
that's the I think that's what it comes down to. Like I don't have room for, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't go well, because I know that my messaging works. And like it has to be reiterated on. I want to recognize it's not one and done, but like I know it's gonna work. So I'm not sweating it.
Right. Did you get to that place of confidence just by doing it over and over? Is that why you're
Yeah,
like,
it's about the reps. Yeah.
yeah.
So personality profits is my one-on-one and it's like
Mhm.
a sprint style. It's like a week, right? I launched it 3 times with and changed my messaging each time.
Mhm.
Like, cause you've got to get your reps in. And like I sold like a, sprinkle, 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 right? But it wasn't until I think it was my fourth that I like sold out incredibly fast. And it wasn't because I had a whole bunch of followers. It wasn't because I had a bunch of people on my email list. It wasn't because of anything like that. It's because I got my reps in and
Mm.
I updated my messaging and I refined it and I didn't give up and I kept coming back. And yeah, so it's about I tell my clients all the time too. It's like it's about getting your reps in.
Mm. How do you go about refining your messaging if it's not working?
Yeah. So they first have to define like what is telling you that it's not working. Because like if and so like yeah, sure, I think the easiest way is like, well, I'm not making sales. It's like kind of like your first indicator. But when people do come to me, because I have people that are like, do I need to do my messaging? I'm not updated because I'm not having any sales. I'm first kind of like, are you actually using it? Are you actually doing something with it besides like one post a week? Like, what are you actually doing with it? And
Mhm.
also, like, messaging does not equal copy. And that's a really big conversation. But just like to summarize it, it's like, it's more like your messaging is kind of like your prompts or your takeaways or your keys, right? And you reference it to write copy. So sometimes, like, people have good messaging, but they don't know copywriting. And so sometimes it's like, no, it's just a matter of like your copywriting, so like of course you've got to like reverse engineer it. But like a big indicator is like you're not making any sales and you've been putting in the reps and it's still ain't working. That's telling you that like what you have to say, and then also like maybe we have to sell, and that's an offer. There could be an offer problem, but um I've typically found that it's usually a messaging problem
Yeah,
for
I would
sure.
agree with that 100%.
Yeah, because to be honest, a lot of our offers are incredibly similar for a reasons, because it's a want,
Mhm.
and they're just like packaged up different.
Right.
So unless like you've pulled an offer out of your butt that people are like, what is that? It's probably not your offer.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
It's yeah, and even with like I feel like copywriting gets easier too when you know like what you're trying to say because
Oh, for sure.
even if it's not like flashy, it's clear, which is going to work.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would argue like it definitely needs to be clear, but then what I think one of the best things you can do for your copy though is like I find that people who have just clear messaging have to write a lot more copy because they have to show up a
Mhm.
lot more because it doesn't stick. But when you layer in the personality and the humor, like just from like the chemicals our brains release whenever we see something that makes us go like, huh, right? Like
Yeah.
the classic LOL where it's like I'm not literally LOLing, but I'm just like, huh. Like what that does in our brains, it just makes that a lot more sticky. So like I find that people who write clear and clever, they have to do a lot less selling because what they have to say actually like sticks around in people's brains longer.
Mhm.
So it sort of like makes condenses the time, it condenses like the work, a lot of that.
You just act like you have a personality when you write your copy, then you won't have as big of a problem.
Yeah. Okay. I think people are like, I just had someone message me literally like, I think it was like 10 minutes before our call. And she was like, I'm not a a good writer. And I'm like, cool. It's not about being a good writer. It's about being like a good editor too. Like I
Mhm.
end my sentences with it. I make multiple typos all the time. And people like respond to my emails and they're like, oh, you spelled whatever. And I'm like, thanks for the reply. Like, it's like, you don't have to be a good writer. I mean, we do work on that one. We do copywriting, but the point is like I'm not trying to make you into an amazing writer. I want to make you into an amazing communicator.
Right, and there's a huge difference. I love
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Well, this has been like the best conversation. I love this. Super
I could go
valuable.
on forever. Like I told you, I like to talk.
I love it. I love it. Come back anytime. I would love, love, love to dive into even more of like what you talked about. So that would be amazing. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah. Okay. So from a marketing angle, the best thing for me to do right now is audience building. So you should just go follow me on Instagram. That's it. So my Instagram is past the queso underscore. So yeah, go follow me there. And then of course go follow me on threads. You can just, click the little threads little
Yes.
deal. I'm so upset though, because like I joined threads like when it first came out. So like it was like past the queso and it was like one of the tiny numbers, and now
Yeah.
it's like I'm like millions of people like
You're
damn
like, there's
it.
my badge. Is there
That
any
was
hope? Is there any hope of you getting your Instagram back? Are you like discussing with Meta or is it just
I'm discussing with Meta. I've hired an attorney because we're trying to do all the things. So I'm like, part of me is like, I am taking the opportunity to restart,
Mhm.
especially with my expansion from just copywriting to like humor and just more marketing, like
Right.
creative direction and like campaigns, like all of this sort of stuff. But if I get it back, that would be phenomenal. Honestly, I miss my content. I miss my series. I have a lot of pieces of content that I would find people sending and sharing with other people.
Mm.
I loved when people would be like, "Oh, I thought about this reel that you posted from a series." I have a series called "The Horrors of Having It All," and it's talking about being an entrepreneur and a mom. And I by definition, like I have it all, but at this,
Mhm.
as amazing as it is, it's really shitty too. And so this like series is really popular, and so it's like I've got to kind of recreate. So I do miss a lot of things I had over on that account. I think the follow count is the thing I miss the least.
I love that. I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with that.
So I'm excited. We'll see what happens, but I'm hopeful.
That's awesome. Well, good luck. I I love that you said that's just like the best way to leave this is like the follow count like is not the most important thing.
Yeah,
And I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure.
I love that. Well,
Mic
thank you
drop.
so much. This was
Kendra and
amazing.
Emily out.
Yes, well for sure and we have links to direct people to that'll all be in the show notes for people to connect with you. So,
Yay.
I'm really
Cool, cool.
excited.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for having me,
Thank
Kendra.
you. Of course. Thanks for being here.